There are moments in your life when it feels as if the ground beneath you is shifting. There are seasons when pressure rises from every direction, when storms gather and you question how much more your heart is meant to carry. But listen carefully, because in this very moment, something greater is unfolding. Something you cannot always witness, yet you can sense deeply in your spirit. God is moving the mountains surrounding you. God is rearranging what once seemed unshakable. God is opening paths you believe were closed forever. And if you look closely with eyes of faith, you will see that the obstacles that once towered over you have begun to tremble. There comes a time when God steps into a situation not with softness, but with a force that shakes the unseen realm. And many never recognize it because they expect the sign to be quiet, gentle, or simple. But when God moves a mountain, the ground quakes, the atmosphere shifts, the spiritual landscape changes. It may shake your comfort, but it will never shake your foundation, because your foundation is God Himself. When something that once resisted you suddenly begins to loosen its grip, that is not chance. That is not luck. That is not your strength. That is the power of God in motion. You may not always understand why God waited. You may not realize why He permitted the mountain to stand in your path for so long. But what you could not see was the work happening behind the scenes. God was building your endurance. God was strengthening your spirit. God was preparing your heart for what would come after the mountain moved. Because when God shifts something that has stood in your way, He does it with intention. And that intention is always bigger, deeper, and more powerful than what you imagine. Sometimes the mountain is not only a problem before you, sometimes it is a fear within you, a wound you never healed, a belief you held for too long. And when God begins to move those inner mountains, it can feel like your whole world is shaking, but the shaking is not meant to break you, it is meant to free you. God is not only moving mountains around you, God is moving mountains inside you. And that shift is what opens the door to blessings that once felt unreachable. Many people pray for God to remove a mountain without realizing that God may first transform the person who must rise beyond it. Mountains do not move because we demand it. Mountains move because God decides the time has come to release you. The time has come to elevate you. The time has come to take you further. God is lifting the weight that once pressed you down. He is removing burdens you carried quietly. He is repositioning situations that felt hopeless, and He is doing it with a power no human hand can imitate. Look at your life for a moment. Consider what has resisted you. Consider the closed doors, the delayed answers, the battles that felt endless. Now embrace this truth. If God wanted those mountains to remain, they would have remained. If God intended that door to stay closed forever, nothing could force it open. If God meant that difficulty to linger for a lifetime, you wouldn't sense the pressure easing, but you do. You feel the shift. You sense the transition. You notice the movement. These are not coincidences. These are the fingerprints of God upon your life. When God moves a mountain, it rarely unfolds in the way you anticipated. You might imagine the mountain simply vanishing, but instead, God may reposition it, God may reshape it, God may carve a way directly through it, because God's purpose is not just to remove your challenges. God's purpose is to reveal His strength through them. When the mountain moves, your faith rises. When the mountain shifts, your trust grows. When the mountain breaks apart, you see God's power unmistakably. And once you witness what God can do, you never doubt Him in the same way again. Some mountains move quietly, some move forcefully, some move gradually, some move suddenly, but every mountain moves at the exact moment God declares it. Not a second earlier, not a moment later. And I want you to hear this with clarity. Your moment is unfolding now. God is not preparing to move mountains around you. God is moving them right now. While you sit here, while you listen, while your heart reaches upward, the shift has already started. Doors you believe were sealed are opening. People who blocked your way are stepping aside. Situations meant to crush you are turning in your favor. God is sending strength you did not realize you could carry. I want you to envision what has felt too heavy for you, the financial pressure, the emotional weight, the uncertainty that kept you awake, the fears that whispered you were not enough. Now picture the hand of God resting on those very mountains, applying pressure, breaking limitations, overturning barriers. God is not requesting that mountain to move. God is commanding it, and what God commands cannot resist. When God moves, nothing stays the same. The atmosphere changes. The spiritual climate realigns. The ground beneath your life shifts to prepare for what God is bringing next. You may feel stretched. You may feel shaken. You may feel like you are standing in unfamiliar territory. But that is what it feels like when God takes you from where you were to where you are meant to go. Growth is uncomfortable. Elevation is unsettling. Breakthroughs disrupt patterns you have lived with for years. But it is all part of God's movement. There is a reason you felt resistance leading up to this moment. The mountain did not want to move. The enemy did not want you free. Your past did not want to release you. But when God chooses to shift something, everything else must bow. The delays break, the chains fall, the obstacles scatter, and you step forward into what was written for you long before the mountain ever stood. Some of you have been wondering why life felt so tight recently, why relationships changed, why opportunities faded, why doors shut, why certain people drifted away. It is because God is clearing space. Mountains do not move unless space is made. God removed what could not travel with you. God shifted what no longer fit your calling. God shut doors that were too small for your purpose. And as painful as that pruning felt, it was essential, because what God is leading you into demands room. It demands freedom. It demands clear and uncluttered vision. You have been asking God to release blessings, and God heard every word. But what you did not see was the preparation happening beneath the surface. Blessings cannot rest on unsteady ground. Miracles cannot stand on fractured foundations. Purpose cannot thrive in crowded soil. So God began to work, not against you, but on your behalf, not to strip you, but to create space for what is coming. And now the mountains that once overwhelmed you are being lifted out of your way. You do not need to plead with God to do what He already intends to accomplish. You do not need to force the mountain to move. You do not need to exhaust your strength trying to shift what only God can command. Your only responsibility is to trust, to stay aligned, to remain surrendered, to stay anchored in the one who sees beyond the mountain and knows exactly where you belong. God is not limited by the height of what stands before you. God is not intimidated by the weight of what tries to crush you. And God is not confused by the complexity of your situation. God sees every angle. God knows every detail. God understands every pressure point. And when He acts, everything must respond. There have been moments when you wondered if God had forgotten you. Moments when it felt like your prayers echoed back unanswered. Moments when silence felt like rejection, but silence is not absence. Silence is not neglect. Silence is not punishment. Silence is preparation. While you waited, God was positioning you. While you prayed, God was aligning things. While you held on, God was arranging the stage. And now the season of shaking has arrived, not to break you, but to release you. You may feel tension in your spirit, a stirring, a sense that something is shifting, even if you cannot see it yet. That is the evidence of God's movement. When God prepares to move a mountain, He first moves something within you. He awakens, He strengthens, He stirs. He redirects your attention away from what was and toward what is ahead. That internal stirring is the first tremor before the mountain shifts. You may be tempted to say, but nothing has changed. Do not be fooled by what your eyes cannot register. Mountains begin to move deep beneath the surface long before any visible stones slide. You are in the earliest stage of a breakthrough that will reshape your entire path. God has already placed His hand upon the situation. And once God touches something, it cannot remain unchanged. There is a power that activates when you trust God with your whole heart. Not partial trust, not conditional trust, complete trust. Trust that stands firm even when the mountain towers before you. Trust that stays firm even when the path looks blocked. Trust that whispers, God is working even when everything feels still. And when God sees that kind of trust in you, He moves on your behalf with a force that overturns every barrier. Some of you have been circling a mountain for years. You've cried over it. You've prayed over it. You've tried to climb it. You've tried to forget it. You've questioned why it refused to move. But hear this deep in your spirit. The reason it didn't move before was because the timing wasn't right. You weren't ready. The ground wasn't steady. The path wasn't shaped. The blessing wasn't aligned. But now things have changed. Now the conditions have shifted. Now God has declared it is time. And when God says it is time, everything must yield. You are entering a season where mountains you once believed were permanent will collapse. Doors you assumed were sealed will swing open. Burdens you thought you'd carry forever will fall away. And not because the mountain weakened, but because God revealed His strength. God is showing you what He can accomplish when you stop relying on your own ability. Think back to the moments in your life when you didn't know how you would make it through. Somehow you endured. Somehow you found strength. Somehow you kept moving when everything in you should have broken. That wasn't luck. That wasn't chance. That was God sustaining you. And the same God who held you then is the God who is shifting mountains now. You may feel unprepared. You may feel small. You may feel worn out. But God does not choose you because you feel powerful. God chooses you because He is powerful. God does not move the mountain because you earned it. God moves the mountain because He is faithful. When God decides to show His power in your life, your weakness does not disqualify you. It positions you. Because when you cannot lift it, God can. When you cannot push it, God pushes it. When you cannot see the path, God reveals it. You are not standing here by mistake. Your life is not random. Your story is not without direction. Every mountain you encountered held a purpose. Every delay carried a lesson. Every struggle had a reason. God uses everything, even the parts you wish had never happened. And now those very experiences are the fuel carrying you into the next level of your purpose. Do not underestimate what God is doing around you just because you cannot see the entire picture. Mountains rarely move all at once. They shift layer by layer. Pressure builds, foundations loosen, cracks appear. What once looked immovable starts to weaken. And then, in a single moment, in one command from God, everything breaks open. That is where you are right now, in the breaking open, in the shifting, in the divine rearranging. You might feel uncertain. You might feel overwhelmed. But that is the feeling of transformation. That is the feeling of God moving you from one season into the next. And sometimes God allows the pressure to rise so that you are pushed into the place you would never have stepped into unless the mountain moved. Everything that seemed delayed in your life is aligning. Everything that once felt stuck is loosening. Everything that resisted you is weakening. God is turning what once stood against you into what will now lift you higher. The very mountain that tried to hold you back will become the testimony that elevates you. You are not walking into this shift by yourself. God goes before you. God stands beside you. God covers you from behind. And God lives within you. This is not your strength. This is not your strategy. This is not your brilliance. This is God. And because God is involved, you cannot fail. So stand steady, raise your head, strengthen your heart. The ground may tremble beneath you, but you will not fall. The mountain may shake, but it will not harm you. The atmosphere may shift, but you will not be abandoned. You are protected, you are guided, you are upheld. And every step you take now is supported by the power of God. God is moving mountains around you, not someday, but right now. Not gradually, but with intention. Not weakly, but with authority. So be courageous. Be expectant. Look forward with confidence, because what once blocked your path is being removed by the hand of the one who never fails. When God begins to move in your life, something awakens inside you that is hard to describe. It's a surge of insight, a sudden lift in your spirit, a courage that wasn't there before. It's the quiet awareness that you are no longer facing the same mountain you faced yesterday. Something is different. God has stepped into the situation, and the atmosphere of your life has shifted. You may not see the full picture yet, but you can feel the weight lifting, the pressure easing, the road expanding. This is what happens when God moves with purpose. Nothing stays in its old place. Nothing keeps its hold. Nothing remains strong enough to interrupt the plan God has set in motion. People often imagine God's intervention as something distant, dramatic, or unmistakably loud. But God's greatest movements are often sensed before they are seen. A door begins to crack open. A conversation tilts in an unexpected direction. A burden that once felt heavy suddenly feels lighter. This is how God signals that the mountain is losing its authority over you. God is dismantling obstacles piece by piece, preparing you for a breakthrough that will leave no doubt about who orchestrated it. There are moments when God moves the mountain by shifting the world around you, and there are moments when God moves it by transforming you. This is the part most people overlook. Sometimes the mountain stands tall because your spirit has not yet grown tall enough to confront it. So God strengthens you. God expands your endurance. God sharpens your wisdom. God widens your perspective. And suddenly you realize that what once intimidated you no longer holds the same power. The mountain didn't shrink. You grew. And your growth was the work of God shaping you from the inside out. When God works on your heart, He often removes things you thought you needed. He breaks your attachment to old comforts. He stirs a restlessness in your spirit so you will not stay where you don't belong. This is not rejection. This is preparation. God is preparing you for more. And the mountain He is moving is the limitation you placed on yourself, the limit of what you believed you deserved, the limit of what you believed was possible, the limit of what you assumed God could accomplish. God removes those boundaries so you can finally see what He has seen all along. Some of the mountains in your life were never external. They were wounds that shaped your perspective. They were thoughts that whispered lies. They were voices from your past that convinced you to remain small. But now God is silencing those voices. God is restoring what they damaged. God is rewriting the inner script that convinced you the mountain was greater than your destiny. When God heals the inside, the outside has no choice but to align. Your transformation forces the mountain to shift. And let me tell you something powerful. God does not move mountains to impress you. God moves mountains to position you. Your purpose requires space. Your calling requires clarity. Your future requires momentum. God sees where you are heading, and God knows what cannot remain standing if you are going to arrive there. So God sweeps it away. God tears it down. God uproots what cannot support the weight of your blessing. God does not make mistakes. If He is moving it, it needed to move. Some of you are stepping into a season where what once resisted you will now assist you. The mountain did not just move. It became part of the path. God is turning old obstacles into stepping stones. He is transforming past pain into present wisdom. He is converting past opposition into current strength. Nothing God touches stays an enemy. God turns every mountain into a testimony of His ability to bring you through what you thought would destroy you. Do not be surprised when the people around you do not understand what God is doing. They cannot see the spiritual shifting. They cannot discern the divine rearranging. They cannot feel the pressure of the mountain lifting off your shoulders. Some people saw you stuck and assumed you would always stay stuck. They grew comfortable with your limitations. But God did not call you to remain where others expected you to stay. God called you forward. And anyone not aligned with that calling will not understand the movement you are stepping into. There may be relationships that drift apart during this transition. Not because of conflict, but because God is escorting you to a higher level, and not everyone can breathe the air up there. Some relationships were tied to the mountain, and when the mountain moves, those ties loosen. Do not mourn what God removes. Do not chase what God released. Do not cling to what God has moved out of your way. If it left during the shifting, it was part of the obstacle, not part of the blessing. You are entering a part of your journey where silence speaks louder than words, where peace becomes evidence, where clarity becomes confirmation. When God moves a mountain, confusion dissolves. The path ahead becomes unmistakable. Something inside you settles, something inside you aligns, something inside you strengthens. That internal alignment is God directing you. God is not just making a way. God is making you ready for the way. You may have tried to push that mountain on your own with sheer willpower, but human strength can only move so much. There are burdens too heavy for human hands. But nothing is too heavy for God. Nothing can resist the one who designed the laws of nature. Nothing can withstand the one who holds every element in perfect balance. When God chooses to shift something, it stops being a possibility and becomes a certainty. Your assignment is not to move the mountain. Your assignment is to trust the one who can. Some of you have been blessed far more than you recognize. You assumed you were being delayed, but you were actually being protected. You thought you were being denied, but you were being redirected. You believed the mountain was blocking your path, but it was actually shielding you from attacks that were never meant to touch you. God kept that mountain in place until the danger passed. And now that the way is safe, God is moving it aside. Do you see how intentional God is? Every mountain has divine timing. Every shift has purpose. Every delay has meaning. The hand of God is never random. And as you begin to discern this, your confidence in Him deepens. You stop fearing mountains because you know mountains can shift. You stop doubting seasons because you know seasons evolve. You stop overthinking obstacles because you know they are temporary. Nothing remains standing when God has decided it is time for you to advance. A deep spiritual maturity grows in moments like these. When you watch God move mountains that once made you tremble, something inside you never returns to fear. You begin to walk with a steady peace. You begin to pray with deeper trust. You begin to speak with bold conviction. You start to understand that no matter how overwhelming the situation appears, God is always greater. And let this truth rest firmly in your spirit. God moves mountains in ways you never expect. Sometimes the mountain moves by disappearing entirely. Sometimes it moves by relocating. Sometimes it turns into a pathway. And sometimes it crumbles piece by piece until it no longer stands. Do not limit the ways God works. Do not expect him to use the same approach twice. God is creative. God is strategic. God is precise. Trust the movement even when you do not understand the method. You may also discover that God is moving mountains within your character. Mountains of impatience, mountains of doubt, mountains of insecurity, mountains of fear, mountains of pride, mountains of hesitation. These are the mountains that quietly sabotage your progress. And when God removes them, you begin to rise faster than you ever believed possible. You begin to see opportunities with clarity. You begin to make decisions with wisdom. You begin to walk with courage. The mountain was not only in your path, it was in your heart. And God in His mercy moved it. This is a season where you must remain spiritually awake. Stay aware. Stay discerning. Doors are opening. Pathways are clearing. Opportunities are unfolding. But you need spiritual eyes to recognize them. Because when the mountain moves, blessing comes quickly, growth comes quickly, change comes quickly. You must be ready to step when God says step, ready to move when God initiates movement, ready to rise when God lifts you. Some blessings are massive, so massive that if the mountain had remained in its place, you would not have had the room to receive them. And God, knowing the fullness of what He has prepared for you, is expanding your territory. Your capacity is increasing, your vision is stretching, your influence is strengthening. That is why the mountain had to move, not only for your escape, but for your expansion. Listen carefully. You are not in a season of mere survival. You are in a season of emergence. God is pulling you out of what held you back. God is raising you above what limited you. God is freeing you from what drained you. You are rising. You may not sense it every day, but you are rising. And the mountain is shifting because God refuses to let anything interfere with what He has ordained for your life. This is not the end of your journey. This is the beginning of a higher one. You are stepping into a new phase of strength, clarity, and purpose. And every step you take now is upheld by the power of God. God is guiding your choices. God is arranging your opportunities. God is guarding your progress. And God is ensuring that nothing will stand between you and the future He has already written for you. If you could see what God sees, you would never fear another mountain again. You would understand that every obstacle has an expiration date. Every barrier has a breaking point. Every challenge has a divine assignment. And every mountain has a moment when it must move. And that moment for you is now. When God begins to lift you into a higher place, the shift is not always soft. Sometimes it feels as though your entire life is shaking. Conversations shift, priorities shift, desires shift. What once felt familiar begins to feel foreign. This is not instability. This is elevation. God is rebuilding your foundation so you can stand in a stronger, more intentional place. And whenever God elevates you, the mountain that once towered over you loses its influence. You no longer look up at it in fear. You look down at it with clarity. You begin to understand why it was there, how it shaped you, how God used it to prepare you for what comes next. There is a moment in every believer's journey when the mountain shifts and the soul takes a deep breath for the first time in years. You realize that the weight you carried wasn't meant to stay on your shoulders forever. God allowed you to feel pressure not to break you, but to train you to rely on Him with a trust deeper than logic. As that trust grows, the mountain begins to move. You start noticing the fingerprints of God in places you overlooked. You see grace in what once irritated you. You see wisdom in what once confused you. And you understand that God was never silent. He was strategic. You may be in a season right now where God is correcting your vision. For too long, you saw the problem but did not see the purpose. You saw the barrier but not the blessing behind it. You saw the struggle but not the shaping. So God is teaching you to see with spiritual eyes. He is teaching you to look beyond the immediate, beyond the surface, beyond the temporary. When your vision changes, the mountain loses its control. It depended on your fear to remain powerful. Once your fear breaks, its height no longer holds authority. Some mountains shift only when your identity rises to match your calling. God cannot elevate you into a role you do not believe you were created for. So He shapes your identity through experiences that push you to recognize your worth, your purpose, and your divine assignment. When you finally see yourself the way God has always seen you, capable, chosen, resilient, and guided by Him, the mountain can no longer stay where it once stood. God moves it because you finally understand that it was never stronger than His plan for your life. There are also moments when God moves mountains through separation. Not everyone who walked with you is meant to walk into the next chapter with you. Some people were meant to accompany you through a season of learning, not a season of elevation. And when God is ready to shift you, He removes voices that distract you, influences that weaken you, and relationships that limit you. This may feel painful in the beginning. You may wonder why certain connections fade without conflict, but over time you will understand that God was clearing the path. The mountain was tied to something or someone you were never meant to depend on. When God removes them, He is removing the obstacle. God also shifts mountains through timing. There are blessings you prayed for that were delayed, not because God ignored you, but because He safeguarded your future. A blessing given too early can become a burden. A door opened too soon can lead you into a place you are not prepared to carry. God's timing is designed for your protection, not your frustration. When the time is right, the mountain moves. What once seemed impossible becomes natural. What once resisted you now welcomes you. When God controls the timing, you do not have to chase opportunities. Opportunities begin to search for you. And do not overlook the mountains that move through clarity. Confusion is one of the enemy's greatest weapons to keep a person stuck. When you don't know what to choose, you hesitate. When you don't know where to go, you freeze. When you don't know what lies ahead, you cling to what feels familiar. But confusion cannot survive where God's clarity breaks through. When God moves the mountain of confusion, your mind becomes steady. You stop questioning every step. You stop doubting your worth. You stop overanalyzing every possibility. A calm confidence settles in because you know God is leading you, and the mountain no longer clouds your discernment. The most overlooked mountains God moves are internal. Many people wait for the external world to shift, not realizing that the most powerful transformation happens deep within the heart. God moves the mountain of bitterness that corrupted your trust. He moves the mountain of disappointment that convinced you to expect less. He moves the mountain of fear that told you to shrink instead of rise. He moves the mountain of insecurity that made you believe you were less than what He created you to be. And when those inner mountains fall, your entire life changes. You begin to stand with new confidence. You begin to speak with new strength. You begin to walk with new purpose. Some of you have been in a long battle, not because you were forgotten, but because God was protecting something precious inside you. He was teaching you endurance. He was teaching you patience. He was teaching you resilience. He was teaching you how to rely on Him in a way that cannot be shaken. The mountain remained in place until those spiritual muscles formed. And now that they have, the mountain is beginning to crumble. What once would have broken you no longer holds that power. What once intimidated you no longer threatens you. God strengthened you for this moment. God is also moving mountains in the spiritual realm long before you see the results in the natural. A shift begins in the unseen before it appears around you. Your prayer, your persistence, your faith in the darkness, all of it has been operating behind the scenes. God has dispatched answers you have not yet recognized. He has rearranged circumstances that have not yet reached your awareness. When the moment arrives, it may look sudden, but nothing God does is sudden to Him. It is only sudden to us because we did not see how many battles He fought for us while we slept, while we doubted, while we waited. There is something powerful that happens when you grasp this truth. God is not only shifting mountains around you, He is teaching you to stand so firmly in faith that future mountains can no longer shake you. God is building a strength within you that will anchor you through storms you haven't encountered yet. He is preparing you for victories you cannot yet imagine. And He is shaping your spirit so that nothing in this world can convince you that you are alone. Some of you are entering a season where everything that once felt heavy will begin to feel light. Not because the problem changed, but because God changed your position. When you rise higher in your faith, the mountain appears smaller from above. When your trust deepens, the enemy loses his influence. When your heart rests in God's promises, fear collapses. This is the kind of strength God gives when He moves mountains. He not only clears the path, He equips you to walk it. You may wonder why the process is taking so long, but understand this. A mountain is not moved with a whisper. A mountain is moved with a command. And when God commands, everything shifts. But sometimes God waits until your heart aligns with His purpose, because He will not move a mountain only for you to run back into the valley you came from. God prepares your heart so that when the path opens, you will step forward without hesitation. One of the greatest signs that God is moving a mountain is the sudden shift in your inner dialogue. The thoughts that once discouraged you start losing their grip. The doubts that once consumed you begin to fade. You begin to speak differently, pray differently, think differently. You begin to feel a quiet confidence that does not come from logic. This is God renewing your spirit. And when God renews your spirit, the mountain cannot remain. Sometimes God moves mountains by placing you in situations that stretch your faith to its limit, not to harm you, but to show you what you're capable of when you lean on Him. You discover strength you never realized was within you. You discover peace that seems illogical in the moment. You discover clarity that rises above the storm. These discoveries are not random. They are God's way of revealing that the mountain is already losing its hold. There are also moments when God moves mountains by sending people into your life who carry exactly what you need: wisdom when you feel lost, encouragement when you feel worn, opportunity when you feel stuck. These individuals appear at the perfect time, not because of coincidence, but because God arranged their arrival. The mountain shifts when the right voice enters your journey. When the right support shows up, when the right connection forms, God uses people as bridges over obstacles you could never cross alone. Do not underestimate the mountains that crumble quietly. Not every breakthrough arrives with noise. Some breakthroughs come softly, gently, silently. One day you realize the pain no longer stings. The memory no longer wounds. The fear no longer grips you. The doubt no longer distracts you. There was no dramatic moment, no thunder, no lightning, just the quiet awareness that God healed what you never thought would mend. Quiet breakthroughs are still breakthroughs. Quiet mountains still move. And when God moves a mountain, He does it in a way that leaves no doubt about where the power came from. You will look back and understand that no strategy, no person, no effort could have done what God accomplished. The timing was too perfect. The connection was too intentional. The shift was too complete. The peace was too deep. That is how you know it was the hand of God. There will come a moment when you stand on the other side of this season and finally see the full picture. You will understand why certain doors stayed closed, why certain people left, why certain plans fell apart, why certain delays occurred, and why the mountain stood as long as it did. When God reveals the purpose, you will thank Him not only for moving the mountain, but for letting it stand long enough to shape you into someone who can carry the blessings that come next. Right now, even if everything still feels uncertain, remember this: God is closer than the mountain. God is stronger than the mountain. God is above the mountain. And God has already begun the movement. The shift is happening. The breakthrough is unfolding. The path is opening. The mountain is losing its position. All you need to do is stand firm, stay faithful, and trust that what God has started, He will complete. And the mountain, no matter how tall, no matter how heavy, no matter how long it has towered over your life, will move. And when you reach that moment when every word settles like a quiet flame in your heart, I want you to hear this truth with the full force of eternity. God has not brought you this far to leave you standing in the middle of the battle, uncertain of who stands with you. God is with you right now, nearer than your breath, stronger than every force that has tried to weaken you, and more devoted to your future than anyone who has ever spoken into your life. This is not the hour to draw back. This is the hour to rise, to steady your spirit, and to walk forward with the unwavering belief that God is shifting the very mountains that once made you tremble. There comes a point in every person's life where they must decide whether they will live as an observer or step into the calling God has placed in their soul. Many people wait for life to settle before they deepen their surrender to God. But those who witness the greatest breakthroughs are the ones who turn to God right in the middle of the storm. With the wind still roaring, with the pressure still heavy, with their hearts still raw, they lift their hands and say, God, I trust you even here, even now. That kind of faith shifts the atmosphere. That kind of faith opens the unseen. That kind of faith makes the impossible bow to the will of God. So, I'm asking you now, where is your heart leaning? Are you trusting your fear or trusting God's hand? Are you walking according to your doubts or walking according to your calling? Are you waiting for perfect circumstances? Or are you letting God shape you in the circumstances you already have? Because God is not looking for flawless people. God is looking for surrendered people. God is looking for people who will dare to believe that His power is greater than every limitation they carry, every wound they've endured, and every weakness they hide behind. God wants your honesty. God wants your willingness. God wants your whole heart. Stand up within yourself and choose God again. Choose God above your insecurities. Choose God above your confusion. Choose God above your delays. Choose God above the whispers that say you are unworthy or forgotten. You are not forgotten. God sees your effort. God sees your quiet tears. God sees the battles you never told anyone about. And every step you take toward Him, every single one, is a step into the unfolding plan God has already prepared for you. You don't need to know the whole path. You only need to hold God's hand for the next step. If you want God to move mountains around you, then give Him the space to move within you. Let Him shape your character, refine your desires, and purify your intentions. Let Him strip away what weighs your spirit down and strengthen what He has placed inside you. When you let God transform your heart, you become a vessel that His power can flow through. And when God flows through you, no force can stop what He intends to build in your life. Mountains don't move because we push them. Mountains move because God commands them to shift. So open your heart right now. Open it wide. Offer God your fears, your hopes, your failures, your dreams. Offer God the things that scare you and the things that excite you. Offer God the places you've struggled to surrender. Tell God with sincerity, lead me, shape me, change me. I want to walk with you. And I promise you, when a soul speaks like that, heaven listens. When a heart bows like that, mountains tremble. When a life yields like that, the darkness loses its hold. You may not see it yet, but something is already stirring. Something is already shifting. Something is already unlocking. This is your moment to rise with purpose, not tomorrow, not someday, now. Lift your spirit, strengthen your resolve. Walk away from the voices that drain you. Lean into the presence of God. Choose the path that aligns with your soul, not the one that pleases the world. Stand boldly in the truth that God is guiding you, guarding you, and carrying you. Let the fire of determination burn again. Let the wind of hope breathe on you again. Let the weight of doubt fall off you like dust. And hear this, God is not finished with you, not even close. The very fact that you are listening right now is a sign that God is stirring something new within you. God is calling you to rise. God is calling you to trust. God is calling you to walk into the life He has prepared. A life anchored in purpose, strengthened by conviction, and fueled by unwavering faith. Do not let this moment pass without lifting your heart to Him. Let this be the hour you choose to step forward with courage. Let this be the day you declare that your life belongs to God and that no mountain will stand in the way of what He has ordained. Walk with God, lean on God, trust God. Let your life testify that when a soul depends on the Almighty, nothing is impossible. Let the world see the strength that comes from a heart anchored in the one who created it. Leave this moment with your head lifted, your spirit awake, and your faith alive, and carry this truth deep within you. The God who moves mountains is moving them for you right now.